Well, welcome everyone to the 8/8 Mother Mary broadcast that's being brought to you near Sedona in a little town called Cornville by Samarah Grace Daniels. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As most of you know, I've been channeling Mother Mary for over 20 years now, and each month she comes up with a new message that seems to be helpful and inspiring and hopefully, shed some light for each of us on this journey and how we can continue on this journey and be even brighter and more peaceful and enjoy our lives even more. So thank you for joining. You're always welcome. And I do send out the broadcast again. And then it's also available on my YouTube station. And it's also available on Facebook at Mother Mary's Messages. So without further ado, I'm just going to take a moment, close my eyes, and let's see what Mother Mary has to say for 8/8. Well, hello, everyone. I think it's going to be an interesting time to talk about promises. You think, promises? Why would I want to talk about promises? What promises are we talking about? Well, what's happening right now in the world is that there is a split between humanity's promises, government, business, etc., healthcare, all of it, promises, broken, 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 and soul promises. And so there is a method, in a way, to the madness that you might be experiencing in the world, because what's really happening is that most of the decisions and promises that had been made over the last several hundred years, at least, in your societies, have not led to what was promised, right? So you went to your work and you worked hard and everything else, and all of a sudden there was a pink slip. Oh, well, we're downsizing, or we are sending our market overseas, or whatever it was. For anyone who's just joined, if you could please mute yourself. There's a little bit of noise in the background. Thank you so much if you would just hit your mute button. So back to this, so promises. So then what starts to happen is people become more and more aggravated that promises are not being kept. Everything from delivery schedules, right? Those of you that are trying to get things, Amazon is good, but not everyone is. Customer service, how long have you stayed on hold? Packages not arriving or being stolen off your front porch. All of these things have led to a couple of very important things to remember. When promises are broken, there is a feeling of betrayal. And what happens, whether it's a personal promise between two people, or sort of a global promise, or a government promise, or a business promise, you feel betrayed, angry, upset, and sometimes a little bit lost. Like, who do I talk to about this? How do I respond to these promises that are not being kept? And the structure starts to erode. The things that you thought would stay in place are no longer in place. And much of this has happened, especially over the last few years, when there is this tumbling down, this wrecking ball around everything that was promised, and those promises were not being kept. So what I want you to just think about for a moment is, how many of you have felt over the last perhaps, months or so, that the promises that were usually in place, whether that was trying to get a visa, whether that was trying to travel, whether that was thinking you could get on an airplane and would leave on time and arrive on time. How many of you have had something where a promise was disappointing or broken? Just kind of raise your hand, right? Right. And almost everyone has had something like that. And how many of you have then felt a little frustrated, a little angry, a little betrayed, right? Like, why is this happening? Why isn't the order being kept? Well, the reason that the order isn't being kept is that the promises were not made from the highest light available. So the promises were made sometimes in very good faith, sometimes truly in wanting to be a good person or a good government or whatever. But what's happening is there's a great deal of light showering you and showering your planet and saying, this isn't good enough. Healthcare isn't good enough. The education system isn't good enough. Certainly the level of contamination and pollution isn't acceptable. How you are living your life and how much greed is still in the mix is no longer acceptable. And so there's this breaking apart of the old promises that were already failing and not being kept. And yet, where are the new promises? And we certainly don't mean to listen to any politician at the moment, none of them. So what is the promise? You know, what is the promise that you want to fulfill? And I'm excited to tell you that it really goes back to each of you tuning back into your guidance, to your higher self, to your connection with God, Spirit, me, however you like to call it, and asking, what is the promise I came to fulfill? The promise I came to fulfill. Never mind that the postman didn't deliver and the garbage truck didn't come and, you know, whatever else was happening. Because as you know, it always begins in terms of taking your power back with yourself. It begins with you. You take your power back and say, well, what is the promise I came to fulfill? And it has to be a little bit like an onion, you know, it's something you keep peeling away at. Because part of the promise is, well, I came to be me, you know, I came to be Samarah or, you know, any of your names. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And so there's a sort of a dual process that has to go on where you go inside and really look at, am I fulfilling the highest promise of my life that I can? Am I fulfilling that? And many times the answer will be, okay, no, a little bit, sometimes yes, this or that. But there is a column of light that I'm going to call your knowing, K-N-O-W-I-N-G, your knowing, that when you connect with your higher self, and then you go all the way through your chakras and connect to the Earth Star chakra, there is a reminder and reawakening of the promise of your soul that you came to fulfill. And again, it's not always easy to say, oh, well, then I need to go to India and build a, you know, a hospital or something. It might be that. But chances are what it is requires you to go back into your life so far and ask yourself the question, how have I betrayed myself?
And this is a very fair statement.
How have I betrayed myself? Because unfortunately, that is really sort of the Gordian knot that has to be unraveled in order for you to then really know the promise that is yours, that you then came to fulfill, and that you want to then, you know, offer to the world. So in this moment that you, if you're on the phone, please mute your voice. Thank you. So as you connect with this column and you get your knowing, many people use the affirmations that were given in sort of the I am situation. So, you know, I am strong, I am powerful, I'm loving, I am a light, and that's wonderful. That is a way to reinforce the fact that you're digging down into yourself to get that column really strong and functioning in terms of your own life and your own light. Because what it does is it creates this knowing, right, within your whole body, mind, and heart and spirit. And when that happens, now the Gordian knot has been unknotted. And the next thing to really ask of yourself is, am I now fulfilling the promise of my life? Because whatever you did to betray yourself, it came out of fear, it came out of human desire to be liked or to stay in a marriage or, whatever it was. But the reality is this is the time of singular awakening to lead to mass awakening. In other words, we can't awaken anyone who's unwilling. We can't awaken anyone who is still stuck in some sort of turmoil within themselves. But if you take the steps to connect with your knowing, and from that, begin to say, all right, what is the promise that I broke years ago? Is there anything I can do now to remedy that, to forgive myself or the other people or whatever? But meanwhile, to say, okay, I'm ready to live my soul's promise. I'm ready to live my soul's promise. Because whatever's happening out there in the world is an outpicturing of what is happening within individuals in that world. And so the only answer, it's an inside job at first. But when you have connected with your knowing and you have sort of gone back a little bit and thought about the promises that you made or didn't make or didn't keep or whatever, that you're still carrying like baggage, like a big backpack on your body that just keeps coming back. Well, you could have and you should have and blah, da, da, da. Forget it. Just take your time to say, you know what, at the time I did the best I could with what I knew and who I was. That's it. Forgiveness, if you want to do a burning ceremony or, a dance of some kind, do it. But the reality is, as long as you're carrying the past, you won't have the future that you want. Because the past is full of mistakes and errors and learnings and all of that. The present is the holy moment where when you're connected and in your knowing, when someone phones you and you get a, wow, okay, I need to talk to this person, or, this is where I need to go next. Then what starts to happen is the path of light becomes very clear to you because you're following your own knowing, your own guidance. You're not listening to someone else tell you, oh, you should be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that. Because many people now have great intentions, but it's not helping them. Because intention without commitment and knowing is just sort of flotsam and jetsam, Well, I intend to lose weight, but I'd like a cheeseburger, please, with big fries. Well, okay, it's all right. But you have to put your commitment with the intention, right, in order to say, this is what I'm choosing to do. Now, this process can take a minute. It can take a week, and take a month, take a year. It's really all in your hands. It's a question of realizing, am I living my soul's promise? And your soul's promise is to awaken and be you. And some of you are writers, some of you are teachers, some of you are healers, some of you are lovers, some of you are husbands or wives. That part doesn't really matter. What matters is that you are living yourself, the joy of you, and that you've become, Jesus said you must become as little children to enter the kingdom of heaven. And you think, well, what does that mean? Do I have to just be silly? Well, I want to put it to you this way. Wisdom and innocence can live together. And I believe that is what Jesus was speaking about. To have the wisdom of everything you've already been through, but to not carry it as a burden, to just let it be what your path has been. But to be like a child is to say, I wonder what I could now create. I wonder who I would now meet. Where would there be joyful expressions for me? and to follow that. So this 8-8, this Lion's Gate, is really like a huge, beautiful wind at your sails to take you wherever you would like to go. But at the same time, if you have too much ballast from the past, it will bog you down in your journey. And so today and this week, if it feels right to you, just take a little time to ask yourself or to write about it. What were the promises in which I betrayed myself? And what might I do now to correct them, to let them go? And as I said, you can do a burning ceremony, you can do whatever. Because the emissaries of light, and you wouldn't be on this call unless you were an emissary of light, it's just how we all roll. Most people are not interested on 5 o'clock on a Monday hearing me talk. But if you're here, you're an emissary of light, so don't worry about it. But what does that mean? It means that you have to somehow, what is that song? Got to wash that man right out of my hair. We've got to wash the past out of your body, out of your hair, out of your mind, and say, you know what? I did the best I could at the time, and I'm ready to move on. And I forgive and let go of anyone and everyone who had a part in that. Because all of that has created who I am today. And so when you do that, and as I said, you can do it in a minute or a week or a month or whatever feels right to you. Now what starts to happen, the alignment is with your current incarnation, your current self. So it's no longer, oh, in a past life I was evil, or in a past life I was beaten or robbed or whatever. All of that can be released in the vow, I choose to live my soul's promise for this life now. And now what begins to happen for each of you is your specialty. Each of you have sort of a specialty, and your specialty is what you enjoy. It is not always on a resume, but it's what you do with just lots of energy and lots of verb, and it could keep you up all night, but you're just so involved in it. It could be writing, teaching, healing, working with animals. It could be just anything. But now you start to work with that potential. So let me give you an example. Many of you have studied Reiki. Many of you have studied Reiki with Samarah. You start to think about, okay, I'm not currently, let's just take animals for a moment, because I know a lot of you have and love your animals. I'm not happy with how many animals are being treated. I mean, I treat mine beautifully, which is true for most of you, but I'm not happy with that. So watch this. One old reaction is, whoa, those people are just awful, and right? And now all of a sudden your whole vibration and frequency is brought down to the level of the people that are currently mistreating animals in whatever way. And so now you have pitched a battle that you cannot win. So in order for you to now use your healing capability, which all of you have, whether you're Reiki or not, you take that situation that has in the past upset or angered you, and you spend 10 or 15 minutes a day sending the light of your love of your animals to the infinite grid that surrounds this earth, the infinite light grid that surrounds this earth. You could call it the field of dreams. And you send love of animals, love your animals. It's like you're sending that heartbeat, how you have cared for and loved your animals, and you're sending it like a beautiful awakening through the grid of light that you're creating. So now you are an emissary of light, you do love your animals, and you are being a healing agent by sending out that energy rather than living in reaction and in battle that of course you couldn't win. Many times you might think about other countries and people that are, again, in harm's way, or going through difficulties. And again, we want you to stay compassionate. We want you to stay loving. We are happy if you choose to contribute money or blankets or whatever. But again, the light that is now available to all of you when you have released the past, especially, is to send the light of love your brother, love your sister, love your family, love this earth. You just have this wonderful mantra that you're sending out while you're taking your walk or having your coffee or whatever. And you're realizing the highest gift I can give when I have established my own light is to send light to those who are currently not yet accessing their own light. Everyone has the capacity, just most people don't take the time or inclination or don't believe that it's possible. And so you become part of this new engine of creation, because honestly, we don't want to repeat the past. We don't want to have the same kind of education that has created sort of the moronic situation we have now. We don't want companies that are so busy making sure their profits are such and such that they don't care about pollution and they don't care about their workers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's taking a stance to really realize the light you carry, the light you bring, the light you are, can be an amazing force for good, can be a life-changing situation. And that really is the highest use of your energy. And that is really the promise you came to fulfill. Now, meanwhile, you may find that you have some ideas about creations, inventions, etc. And that's absolutely wonderful. But the reason I'm suggesting this emissary of light emanation is that I don't want you to wait till you have a full-blown, I'm going to build a skyscraper. No, you're not going to build a skyscraper. I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. And you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. In order to build your own light quotient, if you will, your own light quotient, certainly, number one, as I said, getting rid of the past, establishing this column of gorgeous light that is you, right? And then third, being that beam of light. The joy that you will find in sending light, as I said, whether it's to the people who need it most, the people who are in some sort of difficulty, or whoever you're feeling, what starts to happen is you are magnifying your own light in this process, because you're not joining with the difficulties. You're not joining with the strife and the fighting that's going on. You're above it, beaming down upon the struggling that's going on. These next few years are still going to be a bit turbulent. I'll let you know, you still need your seatbelts. But by having this practice and by joining together with other friends or other like-minded people, you create such a powerful force of light that honestly, although you may feel a little bit of the turbulence out there, it's not going to break your spirit. And you see, part of the difficulty with being an emissary of light is most of you are so empathic, so sensitive, that the challenges and suffering and pain in the world can break your spirit and result in you armoring yourself or being depressed or wanting to separate yourself from everyone, etc. And we understand that, but we're just wanting to offer hopefully a better solution. So by allowing yourself to live in your own light, joining with others who are living in their own light and share it and send it out, you're able to maintain your own balance, your own integrity, your own, I guess I would say, your own soul promise. Because your soul promise is, I will suit up, I will show up, and I will be me. That's all you got when you came down. I will suit up, show up, and be me. And we know it's been a bit of a rough ride. And that's why we come so often to try to just give you some orienting ideas that you can try to make the journey less difficult. So along with that, what I want to say is that thanks to Richard, we started a Facebook page called Mary's Angels. And we also have the beginnings of the nonprofit for Mary's Angels. And I want to just offer something tonight that's been in Samarah's heart for a long time, and maybe in some of yours as well. Over time, whenever that can occur with the light quotient growing, we would love to find land and build a community. And so it's in the dream state right now, but that's how it begins. And so we're just beginning to see and feel what it would be like to actually have a place where people could not only live, but where there could be the beginnings of a new earth. Not that you're leaving the earth, but that there's a new way to be. And many people have started these kinds of things over the last few years and really over the last few decades. But the difference now is that we don't want you to leave society. We don't want you to drop out of society. We want you to be the heartbeat of society. And the heartbeat is really living in a way that is authentic and true to each person, while caring for the land, caring for the animals, caring for each other, and having the capacity to understand that, and I don't mean to be a bummer, but death waits for all of us, right? Death waits for all of you. And so to have a way to understand how do we want to bring our babies into the world, and how do we want to say goodbye whenever the time comes. And right now, there are many ways that are sort of dribbling in and being around there. But I don't think there is yet an enlightened understanding that every soul deserves to have a welcome when they come. And every soul deserves to have a very sweet goodbye when they go. And so I just say that tonight to understand that there are many people who fear death. And as I've said before, death is not a punishment. It's a promise. It's a promise we have made to you that you'll come home. But in an enlightened society, this is a recognition, and this is a way that is built into everything that is happening. The welcome when you come and the sweet goodbye when you go. And so we're just going to be talking about that in the coming months with just different ideas. And if you feel to post some things on Facebook, Mary's Angels, this is just in the beginning. And yet at the same time, I don't think it'll be somewhere between 3 and 4 years before the land is found and the first people come. So that's not a long time. So what I'd like you to just sort of end with for this is, if you choose to connect with the highest light that you are, the highest light that you can bring in, and let it move through you and connect also into the earth, and feel that emanation and invite your knowing, and then say, I choose to live the soul promise that I came to do now. I think what you'll find is that life will become sweeter, life will become easier, and it is not going to be fraught with so much from the past, and you will not be so torn by what's happening in the world, because you will be in the present, and you will also be looking to how you want to see the future unfold through the various forms of light that you send to those who are still struggling. So we love you all so, so much. And we just want you to live your soul's promise now, today, without excuse, without remorse, without regret. and with lots and lots of joy. So I'm going to say good night from Mother Mary for now, for the recording, and all of the rest of you can stay for questions. But I just want you to know you are greatly, greatly loved, and that this is the time. This is your time. Above all, this is your time to live wholly, fully, joyfully, knowingly. Much love. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
So this is Samarah saying goodbye for a moment.